Hello everyone. Here I will explain to you how to practice for headstand. It is known as the king of all poses or the father of all poses. Depending on your current level, your question might be, where do I get started? Or maybe, how can I get into headstand without assistance? Or maybe, how can I stay in headstand for longer time? These are all good questions, and I have long answers to them. But the short answer to all of them is that headstand is not just pose number 6 here, but it's a sequence of poses, and you have to master all of them in order to master headstand. I have a demonstration in another video, and you can click to it from the corner. Now let's move to the tips. My first tip is what I just mentioned. The headstand has an entering and exiting sequence. You have to be able to stay in the individual poses for a long period of time. They are like the milestones. When you know the milestones, you can transition between them. Then you know headstand. But what if you can do pose 1, 2, 3 and transition between them, but you cannot transition to pose number 4? That brings us to the second tip. If you cannot transition, then you just forget about it. Just do the static pose number 4. If you still cannot do the static pose number 4, do an easier variation where you keep the body shape but lower the center of gravity. For example, you can lay down and squeeze your knees, or you can knee down, or you can sit down. If you find these poses still challenging, you can do a variation where you increase the base of support. For example, when you knee down, your knees are supposed to be together. But if it's too challenging, you can open up the knees to make it easier. The goal here is to get familiar with the body shape. The next tip is closely related. So when you learn a pose for the first time, you probably engage too much muscles. Your body is afraid of the new pose, so it will tense up. And the way out is to find one easy variation where you can hold for a long time, and then you keep deep breathing to find ease in the pose. When you can do that, try the next variation, and eventually go to the real pose. The next tip is specific for the headstand. In my experience, the most difficult pose among the 6 is pose number 3, where you need to decrease the angle between your body and the thigh. When this angle becomes as small as possible, say ideally 0, your body will be straight up, and it's very easy to lift your legs and proceed with the following poses. But if you cannot do this one, you can try a variation where you keep the shape. For example, you can do a standing forward fold or a seated forward fold. Or you can do Janu Shishasana. The goal here is to stretch your hamstring. Also note, you want to touch your stomach to the side instead of touch your head to the toe, because the goal is to decrease this angle. If your body is rounded, it will still be hard to lift your legs. Okay, this tip is specific for beginners. Suppose eventually you get to this upright position. Your core will be engaged to make sure your body is straight. So when you build the foundation, you need to do a core strengthening. You can do plank, you can do downward dog, plow, or you can do shoulder stand. They increase in difficulties. The shoulder stand is also known as the queen of all poses or the mother of all poses. You probably won't be able to do headstand if you cannot do shoulder stand, because shoulder stand is an easier version. The center of gravity is lower than headstand. Besides the core strength, you also need back flexibility. When you're upright, you probably would wobble both forward and backward. If your back is not flexible, whenever you wobble backward, you will fall over. And to increase the back flexibility, you do back bend poses, such as downward dog, upward dog, hare pose, and cobra pose. They also increase in difficulties. The next tip is a minor tip. When you're in those poses, you need to make sure the legs are as close to the body as possible, also here. Otherwise, you have more tendency to fall over. So to increase the quad flexibility, you can do poses like Thunderbolt, Hero, or Crescent Moon pose. That brings us to the summary page. We have some general tips for yoga poses. We also have specific tips for headstand. Hope you find some useful information here. Thanks for watching.